time is approximately forever.
Cannot afford to be so politically correct anymore. Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo.
Please continue to hold for the next available representative.
Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo.
We appreciate you waiting and waiting. What is it you're waiting for? Do you even know anymore?
These are people who work hard but no longer have a voice. I am your voice.
Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new live stream. Everybody hit that like button down below. It's time we get this show underway here. Let's put on the camera right here, right now, and there we go. Hello everybody. We have a decent amount to talk about tonight. We're going to be talking about Trump's trial. We're going to be talking about the Biden surge that has just faded away. He stopped surging. He was really never surging to begin with. That was another lie, as they always do. We're going to be talking a little bit about, I'm sure, the whole Congress issue, the speakership. They want to vacate again. Is the swamp swallowing Mike Johnson? Apparently, it seems as if he's caving into them. We're going to be talking about that as well. On top of it, we'll get to super chats. We're going to get to potentially other things. It's also true that just before the stream started, that there's more chaos happening in the Middle East. Israel's attacking Iran. Gas prices are going to go through the roof. They're already through the roof. You know, they were going down for a little bit. Then Biden depleted the entirety of the oil reserves. And now they're going to go back up again, possibly to, $4 a gallon. Even in Texas, where gas is usually lower than the rest of the country, it's already, $3.49 on a good day now. It's going to get a lot worse from here forward. And we have no leadership in this country. Zero. We have negative leadership. And Biden is struggling. Now the surge is over. We'll be talking about the mechanics about the so-called surge that never was a little bit later. The polls are volatile. That we know. They shift up and they shift down. Not a lot's really changed to indicate much of a shift. But one thing that has shifted down even since Donald Trump took a 4-point lead over Joe Biden. Is Biden's job approval now is down. It's almost below 40% again in RCP. That is not a good sign for Biden. You are sitting probably 6 months, just a little bit over 6 months before Election Day. It was 11 months and 10 months. And now we're down to 6.5 months. And Joe Biden has an approval rating of 40.1%. It's not updated here, but in the aggregate, it's 40.1%. In the recent YouGov poll, it's 40%. And for anybody who was dumb enough to claim that the whole Iran attacking Israel would cause Biden's approval rating to go up, his approval rating on foreign policy in the Economist poll single-handedly dropped 10 points from their last poll. So you look at that, he has nothing. Foreign policy, foreign affairs are a train wreck. The border is non-existent. You have people invading the country. Democrats want to coddle illegal aliens. They don't want to deport these people who have no business being in this country. Prices are out of control. They're going to get even worse. They're starting to go up again, for one, which is really bad news for Biden. For two, you talk about the gas prices. That's a major indicator, and wages are not rising. Real-time wages adjusted for inflation are significantly down under the Biden administration. They went down even further last month, and we're not adding enough jobs. The jobs that get added go to illegal aliens, and then Biden can try to go out there and try to hit Trump on abortion. That's why they haven't shut up about abortion for the past, week and a half to 2 weeks. They haven't shut up about it. And while some Republicans still don't know how to navigate the issue properly, it doesn't matter because Donald Trump's position is the winning position. He beat Biden on the issue. It's not to say that Biden's not going to try to energize Democrats. He's going to try to scare them with lies. But when you're lying like it's out of desperation, it usually doesn't work. And Donald Trump's position, leave it to the states, leads Biden's position, which is decided nationally. And some of the people that want it decided nationally want a ban nationally in this poll, which makes the numbers even worse for Joe Biden. This is not some third rail issue that Trump is taking, overturning Roe v. Wade. That was not the problem. The problem was how Republicans decided to respond to that. Some people are, just coming out saying we need a national ban with no exceptions before the midterms. You had Lindsey Graham run his mouth about the issue before the midterms. That probably impacted some Senate races to a certain extent. You had candidates running for governor in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, and in a few other places that came out in favor of no exceptions. And whether you want to say that they took the moral position or not, it is not a winning position, and it allows the immoral opposition to win. We have to be tactful about how we go about this for sure. And Donald Trump's position is not the position that's been losing Republicans elections. It's in fact a position that can cause them to start winning again. And now Biden and Team Biden are panicking about that. That is why they're trying to put him on trial for nonsense, because they know they cannot beat him. They know that they cannot beat this guy. He's Teflon Don. You cannot stop him. You can't beat him on the issues. And when you can't beat him on the issues, they're going to try to arrest you. They're going to try to do what third world dictatorships do in order to keep you from achieving power. That's how these people operate. There's no winning issue right now in the eyes of normal people that is favoring Joe Biden. Even when it comes to the issue of abortion, which is ironic enough, Biden's approval rating on the issue is minus 13. A lot of his own base doesn't really believe that Biden's going to solve the problem when it comes down to abortion to begin with, because Joe Biden had the power to try and codify Roe v. Wade and it never happened. So what's going to make him do it now? Even when you get into their little libtard brains, you can kind of understand why they would be a little bit skeptical of Biden. Of course, a lot of NPCs are going to vote for Biden. It's going to be a close election. Regardless, I'm not saying that it's not, but what I will say is that this is why they're trying to put him on trial. We have the jury pool. We have the jury pool updated, and we know it's in New York City. This is not a trial in Florida. It's not a trial in rural Illinois or some random place that probably would be beneficial to Donald Trump. This is in Manhattan. Manhattan gave Joe Biden around 90% of the vote in the 2020 election. And while Donald Trump is probably going to make gains in New York City, it's still a very, very blue city. You have an attorney general even in the statewide attorney general who campaigned on, I'm going to get Trump. Didn't say on what. She's teaming up with Alvin Bragg, a DA, who campaigned on, I'm going to get Trump, while crime runs rampant throughout New York City. It's out of control. It's something that is not being really attended to. Some people will say, well, technically it's down. Well, they're not reporting it. They're focusing on how can we get Trump for something that we had to change the laws to even get him on. And even then he's not, doing anything illegal when it comes down to it. When you look at the full aspects of this case, Donald Trump did not indeed break the law. And even if he did technically pay for something undisclosed with campaign finance, it's a misdemeanor. It's a fine that he could easily pay. I mean, given all the other fines he's been given, hundreds of millions of dollars for nothing when the banks testified on his behalf in the financial case. But no, they're trying to get him on this case that's already been thrown out basically by the FEC because they're desperate. It is a political persecution and a political prosecution. Those two words are not interchangeable, but both of them apply when it comes down to this. So we have the jury, and some of the jurors, you might say, well, this person looks like they could be on our side. And keep in mind, it takes one juror to have the wherewithal to avoid all of the pressure that's going to be put on them, the intimidation that's going to be put on them to go out there and do the right thing. We've seen a lot of cases in this country go the wrong way because of jury intimidation, because of stealth jurors. You look at what happened in the Derek Chauvin case up in Minnesota. I mean, even if you believe that he had some, thing to do with the whole death of George Floyd, he did not commit second-degree murder. That's basically unjustifiable. You'd have to prove it without beyond the point of reasonable doubt. Same thing with manslaughter. I don't even think it was manslaughter. If you actually watch the video, which most people that talk about this never watch the full video. They watch the 6 minutes that was played to them by the media. If you actually had the full body cam, full everything released instantly, there probably would be not that many riots. There probably would not be even an arrest. It would not even be a news story, but they had to do that because then they needed the energy to beat Trump. They needed how many black swan events to get him in 2020? And some people are like, well, Trump needs a black swan event to win while he's actually leading in the polls. Delusional. But still, either way, we know how these things go. We had a fair trial in the Kenosha case with Kyle Rittenhouse. Everybody knows that. You had a judge that was objectively fair. You had a jury that was not full of insane people, and that we know. And that was a trial in Kenosha, Wisconsin, though. This is a trial that's in New York City. Minneapolis and Kenosha, they're very different. New York City's a lot more like Minneapolis, probably just as liberal, if not more, in this district that is going to be tried. Now, they are throwing out a lot of jurors, I will say, that claim that they have, not had a strong opinion on Trump, but then they find, oh, this person is tearing down conservative signs. This person is having these Facebook posts about Donald Trump. You name it. A lot of these people have been thrown out that are like the blatant biased people, but that doesn't mean that the people that are going to be on the court, on the jury, are necessarily going to be fair. And I will say that. Now, some of these people might be. It might take one, and then there's some people who might say, I get my news from CNN, but they're actually just fronting, and they're on our side secretly as well. Do keep that in mind. But when it comes down to the jurors, I thought we would go over the jurors because we have the full list, and we can kind of predict how the jurors would go, at least assuming if they're telling the truth, because it only takes one. They may not be telling the truth. There will be jury intimidation. Not saying it's going to be a cakewalk, but is it possible? It is possible. Not trying to give people false hope, just stating the reality. Now, if he gets convicted, very good chance they give him probation because they realize that it would cause an immense backfire if they actually put him behind bars. I don't think they're that dumb. I think either way it's going to backfire for them regardless, because let's say he gets acquitted. Then it makes it look like they wasted a bunch of time trying to get him on something that was so ridiculous, and he walks away free. Even if the jury's a hung jury, it's kind of a quasi-acquittal because they're likely not going to retry the case before the election. On top of that, let's say they go out there and convict him without jail time. he stays out of jail, it might give him the label, oh, he's a convicted felon or whatever, but it depends what charges they exactly convict him on, because there's like 30 some counts. It's absolutely insane. But if they get him on the felony charge, but he still somehow is able to walk away, he's somehow able to campaign, they're going to hit him with the convicted felon thing, but it's going to anger a lot of people. And I'm not exactly sure that it's going to stick among independent voters, because we see a poll that comes out today. Trump loses some support if they say he's convicted of a serious crime, but then the same poll asks, do you view this case to be serious or politicized? And everybody says politicized. It's not going to impact the votes of independent voters. It's really not. Some people will say it's going to cause a problem with independents. I don't believe it will. There's a reason why every time this is in the media, every time they waste time and energy on this, Trump gains support among those same voters they say he's going to lose. The undecided voters, the independents, you name it. This is keeping people, siding with Donald Trump. His base turnout's going to be ridiculous, even bigger than it already is. Every single possible Trump supporter, they're going to come out of the shadows, swarm the polling booths, we know. But still, there's a lot of room for backfire regardless of whatever they decide to do, and they're just trying to milk this. It's political theater. It'll be, fodder to the resist libs, but those people are brainless and they're going to vote for Biden regardless. So, but looking at the jurors, a man who lives in West Harlem, works in sales. He is married, likes to do outdoorsy stuff, gets news from the New York Times, Fox News, and MSNBC. Okay, West Harlem, very liberal area. He is married, does outdoorsy stuff. Those things could go either way. Watches Fox News, but also MSNBC, New York Times. Again, that's not somebody I would say is uniquely going to be favorable to Donald Trump. Now, this guy, the next guy's interesting. He's an investment banker. Those can go either way. He follows Twitter, but he's also on Truth Social. He follows Trump on Truth Social. Usually liberals don't have accounts on Truth Social. I will say that. And the fact that he has an account on Truth Social, one could say is, a net positive thing. Claims he doesn't have any beliefs that'll prevent him from being fair or impartial. So that guy might be the one that comes out of nowhere and acquits, unless he's just obsessed with Trump so much. He's deranged. He's insane. I haven't gone through his Twitter feed. I don't think we know his Twitter feed. I think they're all pretty much anonymous. But then we have a young man who's lived in Chelsea for 5 years as a corporate attorney, gets his news from the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and Google. He worked for some DEI firms in Oregon. That guy's probably a convict vote if I had to pick. Then you have a man who's a security engineer, likes woodworking and metalworking. Yeah, that could possibly be somebody who may be a little bit more favorable to Donald Trump. Then we have the young woman who's a Harlem resident, works as a teacher. She lives with her boyfriend, loves writing, theater, and traveling, gets news from Google and TikTok, listens to podcasts on relationships and pop culture. I think this is the woman who works at a charter school and said that she would prefer Trump to Biden, but still, could she be lying? It's possible, but again, maybe not. You never know. Then you have a young woman who lives in Chelsea, works as a software engineer, gets news from New York Times, Google, Facebook, TikTok, probably a liberal. A man who lives on the Upper East Side, works as a civil litigator, enjoys spending time in the outdoors, gets his news from New York Times, Wall Street Journal, New York Post. These two sources, more right-leaning, definitely the New York Post is, and the Washington Post. So maybe I'd say that guy probably is not super friendly. Maybe he could be convinced. I don't know, just looking at it on the surface level. Then you have a man who's retired, works for a major wealth manager, enjoys some outdoor activities. Yoga is kind of a red flag. I don't know a single conservative man who likes yoga. And then you have a woman who's a speech therapist, gets news from CNN, likes reality TV podcasts. That's a convict right there. You could book it no matter what happens. A man who works in commerce, reads the New York Times, listens to podcasts on behavioral psychology, probably center-leftish, I would say. A woman who works as a product development manager, watches late night news. Yeah, late night news. We know how late night shows have become lately. That's probably a convict. And then you have a woman who's a physical therapist who likes running and tennis and listening to podcasts on sports and faith. Well, maybe faith, maybe there's some conservatism there depending on what the faith is. So I'm not entirely sure. But either way, they dismissed a lot of people. This is what they're rolling with. And when it comes down to it all, Do I think it's possible you get one to hang the jury? I think it's more than possible. We just have to see. We know there's going to be a lot of intimidation. We know how these things work. This is a trial. Like Trump says, it is a system that is indeed a rigged system. He said it back in 2016. He's used the term quite a bit, and it exactly is. This is election interference. That's exactly what they're trying to do. Will it backfire? It's very possible. Will Trump even get convicted on this case? I'm not even sure. If he does get convicted, will it move the needle? Well, possibly in his column, because we know that this case right here, this is a case that is probably the weakest case of the 4 already weak cases. And if this is the one case they're really running with, the one trial we're going to see before Election Day, which I'm not going to hold my breath, there's a lot of things that can change. But still, if you're Donald Trump, you got to feel good. There's a reason why he's sitting in court. He's smiling. He's, they say he's falling asleep, but then they say that he's a caged animal the next day. It's like these people are deranged. Everybody knows it. What we do know is that Donald Trump is just basically a political prisoner at this point, whether he's in jail, convicted, or even if he is able to get out and be acquitted. They're holding him hostage. He's not able to be campaigning. He's in New York. This is stuff that third world dictatorships do to suppress their opposition. But is it making a dent? Is it making a difference? So far, it's not. So far, it's actually caused Donald Trump to gain. It's basically consolidated all of his support, not just in the primary, but you look at the general election polling. People were laughing when I said if he gets indicted, he's going to go up. If he gets convicted, he's going to go up. The goalposts have moved significantly, but when you look at it, when it's all said and done, it seems like that's going to be the case, because you look at this, and we're going to talk about polling a little bit before we start to get into the super chats, which you guys have sent quite a bit of them. But we'll go to the national polling. If we can get the national polling up here. Already you can see this. Donald Trump, he basically, the first time that he was indicted, he started to gain. And he was leading the polls. And then he started to fall behind a little bit. And then he got indicted again. He got the mugshot. He's led ever since. September 11th was the last day that Joe Biden led in RCP. And Donald Trump has held the lead for over 7 months in the polls. Emerson, the most recent poll, he's gone up. Civics, the most recent poll, he's gone up. Yahoo News, stagnant. New York Times went down a little bit from their poll a couple months ago, but still. Morning Consult, he's staying about the same. Reuters, very small sample size, a lot of undecideds. But you talk about this surge, the surge you see for Joe Biden, it's gone. That's with the Fox News Trump +5 falling out of the aggregate as well. So you're looking at this. Trump is in a very good position, but the popular vote doesn't make all the difference in the world. The popular vote doesn't. But when it comes down to this, I've said this before, national polls, they're going to move back and forth a little bit. People have been freaking out. Oh, look, I told you, Biden's rising a little bit in this poll. Other side's going to do the same thing. What I'm going to say is that Donald Trump is still the narrow favorite. Polls will likely move back and forth, but Trump is still the favorite in the popular vote as of right now. He might lose it. Doesn't mean he's going to lose the Electoral College, because you don't need to win the popular vote to win the Electoral College. But you want to look at the polls in 2016, Hillary Clinton was leading by 10 points on, April 16th, April 17th, 2016. Who won that election? Oh, we know Donald Trump won that election. Then you can go look at the 2020 polls. You talk about a dead heat when it was all said and done. And then you look at this, Joe Biden leading by over 10 points in the middle of October. And even then it took miracles. So you want to look at the big picture? Donald Trump is in a very, very good position when it comes to this election. Biden is far more unpopular than he was in 2020. Trump's popularities remain the same. He's got the nomination once again. If anything, it's going up. He's more measured. He's, still witty. He's still got his original charm, but he means business now. And he is seeking revenge. And everybody in this country, they love the underdog. They love the revenge tour, and it's exactly what Donald Trump is doing right now. He is the underdog, whether he's leading the polls or not, because in the eyes of the media, oh, he still can't win. They're downplaying it. Oh, Biden's got all this money. Oh, Biden's got a ground game. Same things that were said about Hillary Clinton. And does Biden have money? Yeah, but Trump's catching up. Does Biden have a ground game? Well, it's not doing him any wonders right now. I'm not saying Trump's not going to have a ground game, though. They're both going to have ground games. But Trump has the enthusiasm advantage, and Democrats are still not knowing what to do with their ground game because they're afraid that if they turn out enough voters, that those voters they're going to turn out are actually going to end up voting for Trump, which is ridiculous. And it's funny, but that's the way it is. So you look at this, Donald Trump is in a good position, but also I wanted to cover the state polls as well. We have to do a roundup. Arizona, this is where you had the decision. Now, there's been 0 polls since the abortion decision, but Trump leads in Arizona by 4.5 points. I can't imagine that gap is going to be shut based off of that fact alone when Donald Trump and Kari Lake have come out and said that they disagreed with the court ruling and that it went too far. And ironically enough, it came out the day after Trump made his decision to leave it to the states. It's just the Ducey court. Are they purposely trying to stab Trump in the back? It's entirely possible. That's what Arizona neocons have done the second that Donald Trump came down the escalator. The healthcare law. It's another thing. McCain, his whole entire career, I'm going to get rid of Obamacare. And the second he's about to leave the Senate for health reasons, what does he decide to do? He stabs Trump in the back, stabs his party on the back on the issue. Now, were there concerns about the healthcare bill that a lot of people had? Yes. But still, if that was the bill in 2012, McCain would have been one of the first people to stand up and vote for it. And honestly, if it went into law, I think a lot of the concerns would have just faded away because I don't think that it would have done exactly what a lot of people would have said it would have done. Do I think that was like an ideal healthcare bill? No, but still, I think it did have some decent improvements, probably would have lowered costs over the long term, gotten rid of some regulations that were causing costs to rise. So there's that. Then we go to Nevada, where Donald Trump leads by 3.2%. Now, polls in Nevada have overestimated Republicans, but they've never overestimated Trump by that much. And if he's really making these gains with younger voters, Hispanics, white working class voters in Vegas area, they exist in somewhat decently high numbers. That's good news for Trump in Nevada. I think he's going to win Nevada. I don't think either side's going to put a ridiculous amount of energy in Nevada. But I think that Trump has Nevada. I think Wisconsin, this is an interesting state because we had 2 polls come out. I covered the Marquette one in the last video, but Trump gained in that poll, and Trump is at the same level in the new Fox poll as he was in the old Fox poll in the state of Wisconsin. Trump leads by 1 in Wisconsin. He's almost at 50% in Wisconsin. Now, keep in mind, this is a state where polls drastically underestimate Trump. He has a ridiculously low propensity voter base in Wisconsin. They didn't come out for him in the 2016 or 2020 primaries even all that much. And Biden, narrowly edged Trump in Wisconsin, but Republicans had a very good night that primary night. And I think a big part of the reason why it wasn't even better was because of the fact that you did have that snowstorm take place on election day, and Democrats are more likely to take advantage of early vote, which is an issue. But I don't think it'll be much of an issue come election day when people are more focused on voting, period. So you look at that, Donald Trump up in Wisconsin. Michigan, this is a really big one. Donald Trump leads by 3.3%. And this is for various factors. The auto industry is a big issue. Trump is hitting Biden for the electrical vehicle mandates there. You talk about the border crisis. Now Gretchen Whitmer wants people to house illegal aliens instead of deporting the illegal aliens. And yes, it's not as big of an issue as some people make it out to be, but Biden is struggling with Arabs and Muslim voters as well, who usually vote Democrat because of the Palestine issue. And it's probably the more action he takes either way, it's going to doom him, because you also have the pro-Israel side who is upset that he's not backing Israel enough. And then you have the, what's it called? You have the Palestine side who's mad that Biden's not supporting them enough, even when he does kind of cave to them. It's never enough for these people. Personally, I think it's an issue among like white liberals more so than people make it out to be. You're talking about East Lansing, Michigan. You're talking about Ann Arbor. I think that that's also a big problem for Biden, not necessarily just Muslim voters, but it is true that there is a significant amount, and they do heavily back Biden. If they sit it out, Trump's chances of victory increase, especially because they are high in number in Wayne County, which is a county that is the largest county in the state of Michigan. And Donald Trump got, I think, in the mid to high 20s there. I think he gets low to mid 30s this time around. That's really going to drive up his margin in the state of Michigan more so than not. And the people that want to talk about 2022 polling, well, at this point, Tudor Dixon was losing by 30 points to Gretchen Whitmer, so I don't really want to hear about it. Polls in 2022, the late polls did overestimate Republicans because of the fact that a lot of Democrats voted early and were probably less likely to respond to polls, and they didn't gauge it properly. That's my hypothesis. It holds true across a lot of different states. So that's it for Michigan. And Trump's lead goes up in a lot of the states in the five-way race too. Pennsylvania, here's another one. They are tied in Pennsylvania. Fox News poll, which was the most accurate pollster in 2022, or one of them in Pennsylvania. They had John Fetterman winning by 4 when a lot of the other pollsters had Dr. Oz with a narrow lead, or they had a tied race. So it's not like Fox has a bad track record, but you look at it, Donald Trump, without that outlier Biden plus 10 poll that doesn't make any sense in the mix, he wins it. And then if you want to look at the five-way race, the five-way aggregate, Donald Trump is up in Pennsylvania, the state that Biden has spent a ridiculous amount of time and money in already. He leads by almost 3 points. That's a lean margin. That's not even a tilt margin. So you look at it, and it's like Trump's in a good position in Pennsylvania. North Carolina, he's in a very good position. Even Quinnipiac has him leading by more than what he won the state by in 2020. He's up by 4. That should be a slam dunk for Trump. The question is about the gubernatorial race, which even then I still think is going to be competitive. Some people are writing off Robinson. I don't think he should be written off. He's leading some polls. Some polls have him down, but same polls had Dan Forrest down by a lot more than they have Robinson down by. Then we go to Georgia, where Donald Trump has a 4.2 percentage point lead. You expand it to a five-way race, he has a 6-point lead. This is where Biden's really struggling with black voters in terms of turnout, energy. This is a problem for Biden because Donald Trump's base, he has a high floor. Biden doesn't have a margin for error, and when you're that unpopular, you can't count on being carried by trends as much as you may think. The polls in 2020 were neck and neck in Georgia, and you want to look at 2022, that electorate that showed up, that electorate was more, Trump-friendly, as the exit poll showed, even if Herschel Walker was not able to achieve victory in the state. So there's that. But still, state polls are looking good for Trump. National polls are looking good. He's turning a corner in some polls as well, which I think is the most important thing. If you're turning a corner, and this is not like a surge that's never ending, like a lot of people said it would be, that's a good thing. It's not like Biden's peaking. It's like it went from a Trump +4 to a Biden +4. It goes from a Trump +4 to a tie. Now it's going back to like a Trump +1-ish nationally. That's with CBS News not releasing a poll, even though they showed the Biden approval rating dipping. They didn't pull the presidential race, or they didn't release the presidential race because they didn't want to make Donald Trump look good, because that would have definitely helped them out quite a bit. And there is that. So either way, this is basically where we are right now. And Donald Trump is in a very, very, very good position. So we are going to go to the Super Chats because we have a decent amount of Super Chats that we need to get to right now in chat here. Let's go. So we are going to go up back to the beginning, and we are going to get to these Super Chats. There we go. Got the right lower third on. Johnny Heartdog for 10 says, want to hear something that's amazing? I actually know of a few people who voted for Trump in 2020 and are now riding for Biden. I'm sure that type of a situation is rare, At least I hope. Well, the polls indicate that it's rare. I do not know any people who voted for Trump in 2020 who are now voting for Biden. Some people are, iffy, one could say, but they are definitely not voting for Biden. Now, when it's all said and done, it's possible you see some people, but I think you have a lot of people that have voted for Biden that sit it out. I think you have a lot of people that voted for Biden who might be changing their vote to Trump this time as well. I'm sure we have different anecdotes in chat, but it was in 2020. It seemed like there were more people who switched their votes for Biden, but then you had people doing the inverse. But what decided the election were people who didn't vote before or voted third party. Those people didn't really vote all that favorably for Trump, but now you're seeing it shift. Now the people that didn't vote tend to lean towards Trump this time, but the people who did vote, who might not vote this time, tended to be Biden voters. So it's a double-edged sword for Biden that he's really going to struggle with. Also, if Trump wins in November, I seriously hope he goes after these crooks holding them all these sham trials relentlessly, all of the DEAs, judges, false witnesses. Hope he goes after them with a vengeance, and I'm sure I speak for every true American. I think that they would all agree in chat. Alex Sorico says Nebraska's Senate race is tilt independent. I saw the poll. It's not going to hold. Republicans are going to win it, but Democrats are probably smart to stay out of that race and run the independent, but still, it's not a race that's going to flip, especially in a presidential year. I mean, Democrats said that about Arkansas in 2020, and that did not happen. Tom Cotton easily won. Also, Trump's VP should be Vivek, Zeldin, or Gabbard. It's probably not going to be Vivek. I don't even know if it's going to be Gabbard. I don't know who it's going to be. I think it's going to come out of left field. Zeldin, he might be considering Zeldin if he really wants to make a play for New York, but we have really yet to see if that's going to happen or not. Johnny Heartdog says gas is nearly $5 per gallon here in Washington, where I'm at. Again, that's not good news, but although they have more expensive gas usually, but still, even for them, that's very expensive. The Sandwich Man says, based off of polling registration and rising religion numbers, youth could be the most conservative teen youth since the silent generation. Thoughts? I technically don't agree with that. I mean, I'm not entirely sure that's true with the religious numbers if you compare it to, 20, 30 years ago even. It's a good thing that it might be turning a corner, but it's not where it needs to be. And in terms of, polling registration, I think you're going to see some, shift to the right among young voters, particularly young men. I think there was a poll that came out that showed Biden down, or he was winning young men by 3, which is very low for a Democrat, especially in this day and age. So that's good news. But I disagree with the overall point. It just depends. It depends on how you define conservative. Maybe in the future, maybe there's a corner being turned from the millennial generation, but it's not by a lot. Nick H says, is it safe to say that Michigan is better for Trump than Pennsylvania this year? Well, if you trust the polling, then it would be safe to say that. I can't fully just buy into that, though, because that would say Michigan's more likely to flip than Wisconsin. Personally, I think Wisconsin's the reddest of the 3. But, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just because of the auto industry. Maybe there's underlying factors explaining it. I'm not sure. Let's see. Explorer Bear says it's just a way for Dems to rally up single white women. Well, it's not working enough, apparently. I think that's their main point. I think that's their main objective. I'm not entirely sure it's going to work out. Red Politics 1776 says breaking Israeli missile strikes reportedly bombed a high-level IRGC meeting in Baghdad. Biden and Netanyahu are going to get us into World War III. Well, we'll see about that. It's been back and forth there for a very, very long time. Biden doesn't know what the hell he's doing. He doesn't exactly have the diplomatic skills that Donald Trump has. I don't really believe that he's somebody who Americans trust in a war situation. And every time something happens overseas, his numbers go down. It's not like you're having this rally around the flag effect for him. Mitchell Ryan says, Israel just attacked Iran. Do you think this would hurt Biden's numbers? Also, do you think the U.S. will get involved? We'll see. I'm sure if it gets out of control, there's going to be more aid, more involvement, that sort of thing. But Biden also has to fence it and placate both sides of his own party And that's something that's a little bit difficult for him because no matter what he does, he's going to anger a lot of people, and it's just not working out for his best electoral interest. Cool Blue 71, because we're 6 months away from Election Day, I think more states will emerge. I'm thinking not just for presidential, but also for down ballot offices. Well, it's interesting to watch the Washington gubernatorial race because those are usually closer than the presidential races. And I've seen some polls that have it close, but again, we saw what happens when polls are close in Washington. You just throw a bunch of money at it. We saw that in 2022, didn't work out so well, but it is true that, governor's races are a lot more malleable than Senate races. David Mendez TV says, I don't know if you know this, Israel's attacking Iran. Now, yes, we've covered that. We'll continue to cover it if anything comes up. Lynn RX52 says, plenty of radical leftists and Biden ops on Truth, trust me. It's true, but the guy in question did read Art of the Deal. So, that could probably maybe show that he's less of a Biden op, but he could be lying. I'm not saying that we have to take what the jurors say at face value. Stealth jurors exist. One of the women that says that she watches CNN and reality TV, who knows, that might be the one that's a stealth juror on our side. It's not likely, but it's possible. So who knows? Top Gear Fan 2848 says Virginia Democrats maxed, or can it be the second Colorado if Republicans are not careful? Well, it seems like Republicans are turning a little bit of a corner in Virginia. I can't say the same thing for Colorado. And Democrats kind of, there's not a lot of growth as much as there was before in the D.C. area. Democrats are kind of pretty much maxed out there. Republicans might make some gains. We'll have to wait and see what happens, but still. Cool Blue 71 says Dems must win Wayne County by at least 35 points to be able to carry Michigan. In 2020, Biden won it by 38. I sense 2024, Biden will win it by 30 to 32. I agree with your prediction for Wayne. I don't believe that that's going to be enough. I could pull up the election shuffler. We could mess around with that as well because that's always fun. But it is true. A shift in Wayne can be detrimental to Joe Biden. Any shift that we see in Wayne can be detrimental. You could look at the election shuffler. You could go state by state. We'll take it to Wayne County right here. And Wayne was 38. If we get Wayne down to 30, just 30, and that's just the margin right there, 30.6. We'll roll with 30.6. And you look at the overall margin, that cuts the margin practically in half. And if you say turnout uniquely decreases in Wayne by like 9% compared to the rest of the state, that cuts down the margin to 1.1. And then you just have to make it up in the rest of the, rural areas, hold your own in Oakland, hold your own in Grand Rapids, maybe in Macomb. You could say the relative turnout would go up compared to the rest of the state. And then Donald Trump would go out there and he would take it by his 2016 margin. Then that means the state's 0.67. Then you look at a place like Genesee. You say, people are leaving Genesee County and Trump might gain. He might almost come close to winning it. And then you could say Trump is going to pick off Saginaw County because Republicans, even in the midterms, they didn't do poorly relative to the rest of the state. It's like, okay, now it's a 12,000 vote margin of difference. And if Democrats in, Washtenaw County, they're disillusioned with Biden based off of that, turnout dips a little bit there, relatively speaking. Okay, now it's a 7,000 vote game. Then you talk about Oakland County. Maybe if the auto industry issue bleeds into the suburbs, you see a shift there, just 2 points. It's over. Trump takes Michigan. So that doesn't even account for a lot of rural trends. It's possible Grand Rapids could come back a little bit, even in the midterms. I think Dixon only lost a couple points of ground there, even though I think Grand Rapids was kind of where her campaign was centered. So maybe that had a role that it played in it. But overall, it's going to be a very tough state for, Joe Biden to hold on to if what the polls are saying are accurate. If Donald Trump is gaining ground in some places like Macomb County, maybe even a little bit in Oakland, but then Biden completely bombs in Wayne County, yeah, it's possible. I'd look at the raw vote totals as well, just as much as I'd look at the statewide percentages, because that's pretty much what's going to determine this election. So Byron8899 says, how worried are you if Trump gets bankrupt and is unable to campaign because of the kangaroo court in New York City, Georgia, D.C., etc.? They're not going to try the cases in Georgia and D.C., most likely. I'm not saying it's impossible. Crazier things have happened, but it's not likely they're going to really be able to start those trials before Election Day. I will say that much. And I would be more worried if the Biden campaign wasn't acting desperate. I would be more worried if they weren't acting like unnecessarily just like reaching to just try to one-up Trump. I see how these people behave. They're not the best and brightest people. They're really not. And I mean, those trials are likely not even going to happen. I don't think he's going to get bankrupted. And you see these stocks, these mergers, he's possibly going to gain money in his net worth from it. His net worth right now is like, what, $5 to $6 billion. So I'm not worried about him getting bankrupted at all as of right now. His campaign is a decent amount of money. People are rallying behind him. He's playing to win, and I think he's going to win. Now, it's not going to be easy. There's a lot of bumps in the road. We can't underestimate Biden. But do I believe that we are going to win this thing? Yeah, I do. I do. Biden is a mess. I mean, I don't know if you saw this clip from yesterday, but I could pull this up as well right here. Biden telling Israel not to move on Haifa, which is a major city that's a part of Israel. And listen to this clip.
And I made it clear to Israelis, don't move on Haifa. It's just not, I mean, anyway, I just, look what we did recently.
And people will gaslight. They'll say he's not experiencing cognitive decline. He's the most, intelligent, intact Joe Biden ever behind the scenes. Well, then why is he not showing that to the American public? It's not just a stutter. People that have stutters don't do this. If Joe Biden had a stutter, why was he entirely coherent in the 2008 presidential debates, the 2012 VP debate, even 2020 Biden, he was already declining, but you watch the debates between Trump and Biden in 2020, and he was still more coherent than he usually is now. He's deteriorating. He's out of control. They put this guy on the campaign trail. He's not in the basement, and he's tripping over himself. It's not helping him. I hope he continues to campaign. I hope he's the one campaigning. Let Trump be the guy in the basement, getting all the free media coverage, making him look like a martyr. It's going to help him. Biden's going out there talking about, Israel bombing this city in its own country. This is no different than the Gary Johnson Aleppo situation. And Biden's already the president of the United States. That's a disaster. Doesn't know where cities are, doesn't know what country these cities are in. He has no business being in the Oval Office. No business, based off of that fact alone. That doesn't even touch on any of the other problems with him, with his agenda, with his policies that are destroying the country. This is just awful. Not exactly the best look for Biden whatsoever. Like Donald Trump, but he confused Nikki Haley with Nancy Pelosi. It's like, can you really blame him for that? Can you really blame him for that? I really can't say you can. They're both very much identical in many similar ways, but still, when Donald Trump says it, it's more comes off as more confident, more youthful, even when he has a gaffe. He's always had gaffes. He's had gaffes since he's entered politics. Everybody knows that. But Biden's just make him look weak. They make him look frail. They're clear signs of cognitive decline. This is not something that's going to help him come election time whatsoever. They're putting him on the campaign trail. And people are like, oh, look, he's doing all these rallies. And then there's like 10 people at the rally. Trump doesn't need to campaign as much as Biden. If Biden's only getting like 10 people to show up to events, he's the president of the United States. There's more people protesting outside yelling, let's go Brandon, than there are people that are actually coming to these events in support of Joe Biden. That's pretty much it, plain and simple. I mean, there's nothing else to it. But yeah, if you guys have any more super chats, feel free to send in the super chats. Otherwise, we can continue to go and we could look at regular chat as well. We have 864 live viewers. Like up the stream. Let's get to 600 likes. Let's get to 600 likes. Yeah, exactly. Someone in chat says he needs more drugs. Well, we'll see about that. I don't know what, I honestly, because even when they put him on drugs, you think the State of the Union was a good look for Biden? They tried to gaslight the American public and say he was with it, he was fiery. And it's like, no, the guy just got like this old man yelling at the cloud energy. And his numbers went down. His numbers stayed the same. His approval rating dipped. Approval ratings never dip after the State of the Union. Even I think Biden last year got a bump. This year he's not getting a bump. So either way you try to look at it, doesn't really seem like this is looking good for Biden. Mayor of Baseville for 5 says, Christ is king. So true. Thank you for the super chat. Let's see. Manny says, breaking news, Israel just hit Iran. Well, that's well known by now. They hit them, I think, before the stream. There's been chaos going on in the Middle East. Gas prices are going to go up. It's a total disaster. Let's see. Suri says Trump should just go to the Supreme Court and defy the New York judge order on the basis that he wants to save America and be jailed as a martyr to boost ratings. Well, I think that he just is going to play it the way. I think he's going to let it play out. I don't think he's going to try anything that's too risky, might be seen as a political gamble, even if it might pay off, because I think that he's confident in the way things are kind of going right now. So that's pretty much it. Now, also, the other thing was the Mike Johnson thing that isn't being talked about, surprisingly, as much in chat, because everyone's talking about what's going on with Israel and Iran. But you're seeing what's happening now. He's trying to avoid the motion to vacate. He gave Democrats everything they wanted. He gave them all this aid to all these other countries, but he didn't give any aid to the border. And this is something that a lot of Republicans are angry about. We were very hopeful for Speaker Johnson. He had a record that was pretty much on point when you look at it. When it comes down to all these other representatives in Congress, you would have to say he'd be in the top 20%, 30% of Republicans in Congress when it came down to his voting record. Tough on the border, not supporting Ukraine aid. Now that he gets in the position, he's changing course. What exactly is going on? Because we know he's trying to prevent a government shutdown, but still he's giving the Democrats everything they need. Some people will say, well, let Biden destroy the country. It's just going to make him look bad. Let Biden put America last. It's going to make him look bad. I actually understand that argument, but still, this is just a sad state of affairs. No matter who gets to the speakership position, seems like they're being swallowed by the swamp, and we can't have that happen. I would say the same. Honestly, I think the same thing would have happened if Jordan got the speakership. I think the same thing would have happened if a lot of people got the speakership. It's not even just Mike Johnson. You have a lot of Republicans who would vote to probably shut down the government as well over the whole Ukraine aid thing, and that we know. But he's not behaving like a leader. Part of it I've tried to, give him a bone here and there. Oh, he's being too nice. Whatever. That might be true, but he's giving them everything that they want. We get nothing out of it. And like I said, maybe this is something that will have a net positive long-run effect. Maybe it does cause Biden to look weaker if he's not, agreeing to any money for border security or whatever. But it's a bad look for him. It's a bad look overall. Shutting down the government is risky. I understand politically speaking, but it never makes the president look good. Usually, I don't think it would make Biden look good. It should have been done by McCarthy. If he did that, he probably would still be the speaker. But no, and then Johnson is behaving a lot like McCarthy. It's not really something that's all the best look so far. This is not good. Is he going to be vacated? Well, what are you going to do? Vacate him and then have somebody worse? I mean, what do you exactly do? Personally, it is what it is. If you vacate him, you're not getting somebody better. You're just going to keep getting a worse and worse speaker as you go down the list. Some people will say you can't get worse than this. Well, if that's the case, then just ride with accelerationism. And then when we have the House, if Trump wins and we still have the House, then maybe then look for a new speaker. That's the way I see it. I don't think vacating, that's risky. You might get a Democrat. Biden's going to try to speed through legislation if you have a Democrat speaker, and then he's going to use that to have some talking points to win re-election. That's not something you want either. So I think vacating might not be the right move. I know why people want to do it, but either way, he's a letdown. I think we need to be smart about it. But it's like, people that say he's worse than Jeffries or he's the same as Jeffries, he's not the same as Jeffries. Jeffries will pass a lot of legislation through for Biden that he will get enacted. Johnson is spineless. We know that by now. I wish he wasn't that way. He was a very good congressman for a long time, but then his spine left his body the second that he got the gavel. Not exactly sure why, but he's been compromised to a certain extent, and this is a problem. But at this point, what are you going to do? What are you going to do about this guy? Vacate and cause more chaos when we need to be focused as a party on winning this election? And the chaos is going to possibly have some implications. People don't want that. You don't want Trump to be dragged down. I don't think he really will be dragged down a whole lot by anyone down ballot, because reverse coattails are very overrated, but still, it's not something that we want. We don't want to give the gavel away to Hakeem Jeffries. We don't want somebody worse. We'll see what happens. Trump has said he disagrees with the aid, even though he's come out and said that he supports aid in the form of a loan so long as we get something in return, which I'm not thrilled with. I think it's naive to say that if you give aid, that it's going to be paid back in full by a country that you have to give aid to in the first place. I think that that's something that is not entirely a winning strategy. It's not entirely how it works whatsoever. It's an oversimplification of everything. But still, you look at this and it's just like, it's disappointing. It really is disappointing. There's no other way to chalk it up. So, Top Gear Fan 2848 says Trump should contest Virginia to make Biden waste money. Well, I mean, if he wastes money, I guess you could say him going to different states could cause that effect. I'm not entirely sure. Is Biden going to Florida going to make Trump waste money? Probably not. So there's that. Biden's already wasting a lot of money. He spent hundreds of millions, over $100 million already on his campaign. He can't even buy his way to a lead in a single swing state. I mean, folks, this whole money thing, he better hope the turnout apparatus comes through for him at the end of the day, because that's the only thing he has left. The only thing he has. But Republicans are still, they've got to spend their money wisely and get people out to vote. But when you have somebody like Trump on the ballot, you're probably going to see that. You're going to see more of a shift. So Tom Sav for 10 says, I think Trump has a chance to flip New York because of the people in Harlem that came out for him. I wouldn't bet on it. I think he's going to gain a lot in New York. I think it's just too much, because we look at this, and if you look at this map right here, you go to New York, just to cut his margins in half, you have to shift. Okay, let's see. You would have to shift all of New York City's boroughs and Staten Island. You'd have to shift Nassau County and Suffolk County. You would have to shift these counties, because that would net Biden. Biden gets 1.7 million votes out of Long Island and New York City alone. So you would have to shift those votes. Right. Donald Trump in these areas, he would have to get 45% in the New York City metro just to cut the lead down to 8. And that would mean that he's getting 37 in Brooklyn, he's getting 41 in Queens, 27 in Manhattan, 30% in the Bronx. He'd be getting, Stalin numbers and Staten Island. I think that's probably doable, though. Staten Island, even in the primary, came out for him 92-5. It was an insane margin. And then you'd have to move Westchester probably by about 10 points here. He's still down by 8. He'd have to do better upstate by 8 points. Is it possible? It's a long shot. I'm just saying, if you can move an area like that, you move Pennsylvania and Georgia like that, it doesn't matter. Maybe you can play around with the map a little bit here and there, go to New York. He's going to go to New Jersey. He does that stuff every once in a while. It's fine. I'm not going to hate on it, but still is what it is. Manny says, thoughts on Caitlin Clark? I have no thoughts on women's basketball, honestly. I mean, it's something that I guess people are caring about for once. But anybody who's talking about the whole the pay gap, Biden, I see Biden talking about the pay gap. It's because nobody watches women's basketball. That's why they have an insane pay gap. The only reason it exists is because it's subsidized by the NBA. It's not even profitable. They basically give this affirmative action league in the first place so, they can feel good about having a women's basketball league. And if there was really a demand for it, where are all the women? Where are all the women? They're like, it's sexist, whatever. nonsense. Where are all the women that watch women's basketball? They don't, except if they are sexually attracted to other women. They have no interest in it. Usually that's the case. Look it up. It's statistics. But yeah, I have no thoughts. On the issue. Grant Peterson says Wisconsin Senate race is definitely being tightened in the last few polls. Polls overestimated Johnson by about 2.3, by the way, according to 538. Yeah, but that was a midterm year. Trump is on the ballot. It is a very, very different dynamic in the state of Wisconsin. And polls underestimated Trump by an average of 6 to 7 points over the past 2 cycles in Wisconsin. Although they were, I guess you would say close in 2018, close in 2022, overestimated Republicans actually. But yeah, the fact that you see Eric Hovde neck and neck with Tammy Baldwin, who is supposedly an electoral juggernaut, who has been there for, 12 years so far in the Senate. They say she's an unbeatable moderate titan. She's overrated. Eric Hovde is a very good candidate. I think he can knock her off. Do I think it's guaranteed? No, but because he's got the momentum, he's got a boatload of money, and he's already polling within the margin of error, and Trump's on the ballot. I mean, yeah, I think that Wisconsin Senate race is a very easy win for the Republicans. Bomani Igloo says, I think it's possible Trump loses the case in New York, gets probation, and isn't allowed to leave the state to campaign. Well, he doesn't live in New York, so I don't think that would be a part of his probation. But if they do that, I think it will likely backfire. I think that regardless of whatever they do, they're put in a position where he's 2 to 3 steps ahead of them. The abortion thing, they were seething that he wouldn't commit to a national ban because they knew that they would have something to one-up him on, but they couldn't do it because he didn't agree to it. And now they're upset, they're lying, they're desperate, they're trying to still claim that he's in favor of all these things. It's not landing. It's not working because the polls showed that Americans agree with Donald Trump on the issue over Joe Biden at this point. And that's without even Trump hammering on the radicalism within the left's platform on the issue of abortion. Third trimester, they're okay with that. The baby can survive outside the womb. They're still okay with legal elective abortions in the third trimester. They are. And they will try to downplay it. They will try to say it's rare. It doesn't matter. It should not happen at all. If you're downplaying it so much, why have it legal to begin with? It's objective murder. You can't really claim otherwise. So Barry Patterson says the only reason on Biden was coherent at the 2020 debate in the State of the Union because they had him jacked up on drugs. Well, yeah, but even when they do it, it's still, he wasn't all that coherent. Keep in mind, you can't read off a script at a debate. Some people will make, memes about, maybe he has an earpiece, but, to what extent is that real? Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. But even then, it's unlikely that he would be able to talk that fast if he's got an earpiece reading him what he has to say. He has a teleprompter for the State of the Union. Even then, when he goes off script, he was just like rambling. He seemed incoherent. He was not all that intact during the State of the Union. He started off angry, just angry lies, divisive stuff during the supposedly Unitarian speech. They're supposed to unite the country. No, he did everything but in the speech. That's not something you want to do. So Restore Data says you have to shift the Denver metro area by R plus 38 points to break Trump plus 4 in the state. Is it possible by this election? No. Give up on Colorado. I hate to say it, but there's just no real shot that Republicans have in the state. I've talked about this for years, and everything I've said is held true. Virginia and Georgia might be a little bit of a different story, especially Georgia this time around, but we'll see. Manny says, why is Menominee County in Wisconsin deeply Democrat? All Native Americans, it's a reservation for the most part. It's not a very populated county, though, and technically Republicans have made some gains there, believe it or not. Top Gear Fan 2848 says, Trump has a chance to flip Minnesota, Virginia, but not New Hampshire. Why? I don't think he has much of a shot to flip any of those three, maybe Minnesota, but New Hampshire's just a state that has TDS. I mean, you saw all those crossovers in the primary just to to own Blump for Nikki Haley. It wasn't even a fully open primary, but you still had a ridiculous amount of crossovers and people trying to vote in it. So there's that. Zach Webster says Wisconsin, Michigan Senate goes red. New York to the right of Colorado. I agree. And I think that with Michigan, it's possible Trump can go out there and win. If he wins Michigan, why would Republicans not take the Senate race if he's really up by, 2 to 3 points in the state of Michigan? It's very possible he does win it. And you could look right here. I'll pull up the Senate map. I'll show you guys the best case scenario. Let me see. Here we go. Okay, so you give Republicans all the states they're going to get. We'll give them Montana, technically we'll do that later, but Wyoming, Nebraska, Missouri, Tennessee, Mississippi, Texas, Florida by a likely margin. Give them Indiana, give them Utah, Ohio and Montana, those lean R. Democrats will give them these states and these states. New Mexico, probably likely. If it wasn't, an incumbent, be interesting because you do have somebody who is a very strong, popular name in the state, Dominici running. Also forgot West Virginia. There we go. Okay. And yeah, some people are saying Maryland's not safe blue. Yeah, that's something that does need to be considered. But yeah, if you give them Michigan and Wisconsin, that is huge because they'd be at 54. And that's not saying they can't win Nevada. They can still win Arizona. They probably fall short in the rest of these states, but even Maryland, I know Hogan's up in the polls, still up in the air. He's not going to be all that conservative anyways, but yeah, I think that 56, is it impossible? No. Is it likely? No, but it's an underrated possibility. It's an underrated possibility. Some people are saying Maryland is safe blue. Well, the polls have it right now as safe red, so I'm not saying that it's going to stay that way. Just like the polls that have Ohio and Montana as, lean Dem, that's not going to stay that way. We know it, but still, the fact that Trone has all this money, has spent all this money, may not even win his primary, maybe a lunatic on the far left wins it. Yeah, it's possible it can be within 10. That's why I have it as likely. I don't think it's, going to flip, but maybe as we get closer, if the polls are showing it being safe, I'd change it to safe, but yeah, I'd go with that as the map. But New York, yeah, I don't know who's even the nominee. It's some Rhino guy from what I've heard, but there's that. And then Pennsylvania, Virginia are going to probably be closer. But that's the best case scenario that I could see happening. 56-44. That would be huge because at that point you're going to have a lot of leeway to do a lot of different things, and you're going to have a Rhino-proof majority to get things done. You probably have Murkowski just switch parties at that point. But, yeah. All right, let's see. No new super chats. If you guys want to send in any super chats, feel free. We can probably go for another 10 minutes here. We could look at regular chat, see what regular chat has to say. Zeldin probably, I don't think he wants to risk losing another race. It's a lot harder to win in a deep blue state at the Senate level than it is at the governorship level. And no, I don't think Menendez is going to, if he runs as an independent, I don't think he's going to help New Jersey flip red, but he could eat into the margins. It's possible. Will Arizona go blue because of abortion? I don't think it's going to have as big of an impact as some people say. I think it's going to energize turnout, but it's going to be on the ballot probably. That will energize Democrat turnout, but still, people that are upset, they could split their ballots. They can go Trump and then codify, and Biden's message is not going to have as much of an impact as some people will make it out to be. Ethan Ellis says, let's go Brandon Herrera. Well, I haven't heard much about his race lately. We'll see what happens. I think the runoff is going to be next month. Also, what's going on with the whole, what's it called? The Dade Phelan race as well, the runoff there. That's another big issue. We'll see what happens. LinnerX52 says, Intel is scaring Johnson in private briefings. They lie to keep FISA, lie for money for the military-industrial complex. Not sure he has a savvy head to read correctly thoughts. Agree not the time to vacate. No, I agree with you. I don't think that inherently he's somebody who's always been this rhino, because his voting record in the past has showed that he, sided against the FISA. But now he's siding with FISA because the swamp runs deep and it consumes everybody who gets into that position. Now, if Donald Trump's in the presidency, maybe he'll have more pull, he'll have more influence. That's why they're trying to keep him out of the presidency. And that's the way it is. But they've used FISA. They spied on Trump's campaign. They said Trump was a lunatic when he said it, but it's been proven true. They didn't find anything. Cool Blue 71 says Wisconsin has delivered same party outcomes since 76 for the president and Senate. Pennsylvania has not had 2 Democrat U.S. senators more than 4 years since pre-1860. Well, these historical tidbits are interesting, but at the same time, it's not like they're definitive. So it technically is true that Donald Trump has never been on the same ticket and won in a state with a losing Republican Senate candidate. Maybe that changes, but he does have coattails, and they do come out big. I mean, you look at Wisconsin, he's got pull in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania like no other Republican does over the past, 30 years, ever since Reagan. And even then, his coalition in some places is stronger than Reagan's was. So there's that. I mean, we'll see what happens with Wisconsin, but when you look at the fact that you have a strong Senate candidate in the running, that is very good news for Republicans, that they actually have a fighting chance. Democrats have to defend that seat. You look at Tester and Brown, they're going to be getting less money. That's going to guarantee the Senate going red, even if Democrats pull out Wisconsin, just because of the fact that Tester and Brown basically are already running campaigns that don't match their actions. And you look at how they're voting on the border right now. They're voting to, against, they say impeaching Mayorkas, who has not done his job, is unconstitutional. And they voted against border security. They voted against the Lake and Riley Act. I mean, these are not moderate people. And with Trump on the ballot, they're not even pretending to come around during the election year. Either they're super overconfident and it's going to be their downfall, or they just know that they probably can't win, which I think it's probably the first. So there's that. Bruce Rice, thank you for the member chat. The Wanderer says, hello, I live in Maryland currently. Hogan has pissed off the MAGA wing and has said he would not support Trump. Money should not be wasted here. I agree that it's a waste of money for out-of-state dollars to go to Larry Hogan. But I do think that a lot of people that have been pissed off by him are still going to vote for him. It doesn't mean he's going to win, but it's going to be a closer race than it usually is for Maryland, just because he had a high approval rating when he left office, and because of the fact that he's going to be on the ballot. It's going to help out down ballot races, but I don't think he's going to win it. Bruce Rice, thank you for the 5 and the super sticker. The Sandwich Man says, how much does Trump need to win in Wisconsin for Hovde to win? It's possible he just needs to win it, period. I don't know. As of right now, I'd say by like a point, which is possible. Josh Light says, Rep, how in the blue HE double hockey sticks did John Tester survive in 2018? Republicans won harder states in the Senate. Well, Tester had the better, moderate optics compared to pretty much everybody else who went down. But also, it's important to note that Tester, that race, he had a lot more money than Rosendale. The GOP didn't really do that much to help out Rosendale. He had an ugly primary. It didn't exactly seem as if he was going to be able to go out there and win it. But technically, he came short. He came close, but he fell short. And that was in a very blue electorate. I think that, if anything, would be a signal that he's not very strong as a candidate this time. He's never shared a ballot with Donald Trump. That changes now. Now he probably goes down. Eli says, Trump has gained a huge support among urban Gen Z blacks and Hispanics. I see it there in Houston. My only concern is, will they actually take the time to register and vote? Well, that's a very good question, because the poll that we saw showed that the blacks that Trump has gained are the least likely to turn out. Now, that could change because Trump on the ballot will likely energize people that don't usually vote to vote. But you have to micro-target people who support Trump, even if they're in blue areas, somehow, some way, build an operation to get them out and voting. That is a must-do, absolutely. Shout out to Bruce Rice for granting 5 rep memberships. Thank you, Bruce. The Wanderer says, do not believe the polls here. Hogan is just a Romney. Future Pennsylvania voter for Trump here. Leave Maryland for Pennsylvania or Virginia. Yeah, nobody said he's conservative. Nobody said he's conservative at all. He's not. He's a moderate to liberal Republican. Actually, some of it might be him just trying to play the game for Maryland, but I mean, he still virtue signals too much for that to be the case. But you're not going to get a Democrat, or you're not going to get a actual conservative in Maryland no matter what you do. I mean, that's plain and simple. Let's see. I used an election model that had Colorado shift 4 points Dem and Virginia shift 3 points Dem, while having Iowa shift 19 points right and Ohio shift 15 points right. Well, I think you're probably using the 538 swingometer that is completely confusing to use, and I don't even know what to make of it. I'm not using it unless they come out with a better one like they had in 2016. So that's that. Other than that, this will be the final call for Super Chats. If anybody has any final Super Chats, feel free to send them in. Otherwise, we're probably going to end the show in the next couple minutes or so. So thanks everybody who tuned in. But like the stream, let's get to 600 likes before we go, if that's possible. We're only 62 away. Speaking of 538, that's our like count right now. But hit that like button. Let's get it up there. Sven Olsen says, thoughts on Minnesota getting competitive in recent polling. Polls seem to indicate a gender realignment. Also, Biden did outperform his polls. In Minnesota? Or are you talking about for the primary? Because I can explain the latter. But in terms of Minnesota getting competitive, I think that it's something that has to do with Democrats turning on Biden because the Palestine thing. And you have a lot of far-left voters in Minneapolis upset about it. He only got like in the 60s in the primary there. Now, in terms of it being competitive, you have a high third-party vote share. That's going to help out Republicans. And on top of it, the gender realignment in polls, I would not read too much into crosstabs. I would not. People that read too much into crosstabs, I feel like to discredit polls or to say that it's definitive, they always get burned. I've been saying this since 2020. The polls that had Trump losing seniors, I always said he's going to win seniors. He's going to win Florida. They said, no, he won't. And the exit polls across the board showed that he won seniors, not by as much as he did in 2016, but he still won them. Mitchell Ryan says, did you hear about the Right to Vote Act? Is that the one they put forward the Democrats are upset about because it says ban non-citizens from voting? I mean, that's pretty much common sense. They're saying, well, it's already illegal. Well, why not support the bill then? Why not just go with it? You know, technically some localities, anybody can vote. People with green cards, and not for presidential elections, but for local elections. I think that's a problem. Marty Smith fan Seuss says Israeli bombing Iran and vice versa isn't helping Biden. We want Trump for peace. Everybody wants Trump. Everybody on every side of every conflict should want Trump because he will negotiate the peace. He will get it done. He will end the conflicts. That's the type of leadership we need back in the White House, not whatever nonsense we have right now. Top Gear fan 2848 says Pennsylvania within 100,000. Also, boo McCormick for Senate. Well, he's going to be the nominee regardless. But if you say within 100,000, are you saying the margin of victory? It's probably going to be within 100,000. We could do that on the election shuffler. I don't know if we're going to end up doing a video based solely on the election shuffler in the future. I'd probably have to play around with it more to fully gauge predictions. But anyone who uses the midterms to predict the general, they're doing themselves and everybody else a disservice. But I really hope that the midterms made Democrats complacent. I really hope that it's made them overconfident. And I really hope that they get burned in 2024. This November, 6.5 months, not even. So let's get this done. But anyways, guys, it's about time to end the stream. Like the stream before you go. We're almost to 600. I'm sure we'll get there. Subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the bell if you're subscribed so you never miss another video or stream. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below. And I will see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle, out.